When you hear the word emptiness, what comes to mind? Perhaps a void, a sense of nothingness, or even something ominous or nihilistic. Yet in Buddhist philosophy, emptiness, or śūnyatā, represents one of the most profound and liberating insights into the nature of reality. This teaching, often misunderstood as a denial of life, is actually about discovering a more interconnected and compassionate way of being. Emptiness challenges us to let go of fixed ideas about ourselves and others, and in doing so, invites us to experience the world with a clearer, more liberated mind. From the perspective of Buddhism, our tendency to cling to an idea of a self as a permanent, separate entity leads to suffering. Emptiness teaches us to see that this self is a temporary construct, created by our senses, thoughts, and cultural influences. Imagine the difference this insight could make in our relationships, our work, and our sense of inner peace. We often hear phrases like live in the present or let go, but emptiness brings depth to these ideas, showing us how to actually embody them. In this exploration, we'll take a journey into the 5 different meanings of śūnyatā, as explained in Buddhist teachings, look at how these meanings evolved, and discover how they remain profoundly relevant today. I'll share personal reflections, practical examples, and stories that illuminate this teaching. By the end, I hope this exploration will inspire a new perspective on how emptiness can serve as a pathway to personal freedom and inner peace. Part 1. Unpacking the first layer of emptiness. No independent self. The first interpretation of emptiness is that the self we identify with is, in fact, empty of intrinsic identity. This idea isn't about negating our existence, but rather showing that what we consider self is actually a product of interconnected factors. Think about the analogy often used in Buddhism, a musical performance. A song is made up of the musician, the instrument, and the sound. If you take any one of these components away, the music would not exist in the same way. Similarly, our consciousness is shaped by interactions between our sense organs, our thoughts, and the world around us. We experience the world as an interdependent flow of conditions. In my own life, I once encountered this concept in a very unexpected way. During a period of intense change, I was working on a project that felt personally meaningful. Over time, I noticed my thoughts shifting from, "I'm doing this," to "this is happening through me." The I seemed less relevant, and the process itself felt more organic. It's as though the self, the one that wanted recognition, control, and certainty, took a back seat. I realized then that my experience was being shaped by countless factors: my environment, my past experiences, and even the influence of the people around me. This wasn't my achievement alone. It was a result of a web of interconnected influences, and my sense of self was just one small part of it. When the Buddha first introduced the concept of no self, he explained it in practical terms. He noted that each of our senses, sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, and thought, operates automatically, arising when the conditions are right. Just as a flower blooms when it receives sunlight and water, our senses and consciousness respond to their respective objects without the need for a controlling self. For example, when you hear a beautiful piece of music, your experience is not created by a self. It's simply the natural response of your hearing to sound. This insight invites us to consider that our experiences, emotions, and thoughts are not owned by a fixed self, but are part of a vast, interconnected process. The paradox of self and non-self. Navigating everyday life without clinging. Understanding that the self is not fixed or independent can be both liberating and challenging. In practical terms, it means that we can approach life with a sense of openness and curiosity, free from rigid attachments. Imagine how this understanding might impact your relationships. Instead of seeing conflicts as personal attacks, you might start to see them as temporary misunderstandings, shaped by conditions outside of any one person's control. This shift in perspective can ease the tension and allow for compassion to arise naturally. But letting go of the idea of self doesn't mean becoming passive or detached. Rather, it means engaging with life in a way that is less ego-driven and more attuned to the moment. For example, if someone cuts you off in traffic, your first instinct might be to feel angry or personally offended. However, if you consider that this person's actions are part of a chain of causes and conditions, Perhaps they were in a rush, distracted, or dealing with stress. You may find that your anger dissipates. By recognizing that there is no fixed self causing harm to another self, you create space for understanding and patience. Part 2. No separate objects. Nagarjuna's insight into interdependent reality. Nagarjuna, a revered Buddhist philosopher, took the idea of emptiness one step further. He proposed that not only is the self empty, but the objects we perceive are also empty of inherent existence. This might sound abstract, but let's bring it down to earth. Think about a beautiful flower. When you see it, you may appreciate its colors, fragrance, and form. But if we look deeper, we find that the flower depends on sunlight, water, nutrients in the soil, and a suitable climate. Without these conditions, the flower could not exist. Nagarjuna's insight teaches us that all phenomena are like this flower. They depend on countless interconnected factors and have no independent essence. Reflecting on this idea can change how we relate to the world. For instance, I once took a long road trip through various landscapes, mountains, deserts, and lush valleys. Each scene was beautiful, but I noticed that none of these places existed in isolation. The desert was shaped by wind, the mountains by tectonic shifts, and the valleys by rivers. This journey reminded me that everything I was witnessing was interconnected, part of a broader ecosystem, and none of it existed on its own. This insight also encourages us to approach material possessions with less attachment. Often, we think of objects as extensions of ourselves, our car, our phone, our home. But when we see that these objects are also empty of intrinsic identity, it becomes easier to appreciate them without clinging to them as if they define us. This detachment is not about renouncing the world, but about freeing ourselves from the illusion that anything can give us permanent satisfaction. Interconnectedness in relationships. A story of compassion. Let me share a story from my own life that illustrates the power of seeing things as interconnected. A friend of mine was going through a difficult time, and I wanted to help them. Initially, I felt frustrated because my efforts didn't seem to make a difference. But as I reflected on Nagarjuna's teaching, I realized that my friend's struggles were the result of many interconnected causes, their past, their environment, and perhaps even influences I couldn't see. My role was just one small part of their journey. This realization brought me a sense of peace, and instead of trying to fix things, I focused on being present and supportive without attachment to the outcome. This approach to relationships, seeing each interaction as part of a larger web of causes and conditions, allows us to love and support others without feeling responsible for their happiness. It reminds us that our relationships are not about ownership or control, but about sharing experiences in a spirit of compassion. Part 3. The experience of pure awareness. Beyond subject and object. As we move deeper into the teachings of emptiness, we encounter the Yogacara school's interpretation, which challenges the distinction between subject and object. According to this perspective, our experience is not divided into a self that experiences and an object that is experienced. Rather, it's a seamless flow of awareness where subject and object are interdependent. This concept can be difficult to grasp, but imagine watching a sunset. You are not separate from the sunset. Your experience of it arises in your consciousness as a unified whole. The idea that you are an observer and the sunset is an object dissolves into a single, undivided experience. This teaching has profound implications for how we approach mindfulness and meditation. Often we try to observe our thoughts as if they are separate from us, but the Yogacara school suggests that this separation is an illusion. Instead of observing our thoughts, we can experience them as part of the flow of awareness. This approach can lead to a deeper state of meditation, where the boundary between self and experience fades away. A personal meditation practice. Embracing non-dual awareness. In my meditation practice, I've experimented with this idea of non-duality, or seeing experience as a unified flow. I noticed that when I focused on my breath, I often felt like an observer watching my breath. But as I let go of this sense of separation, I began to feel that my breath and my awareness were one. There was no me observing the breath. There was only the experience of breathing. This shift brought a profound sense of peace, as though I had merged with the present moment. This experience is a reminder that emptiness is not a cold, abstract concept, but a doorway to a warm and connected way of being. By letting go of the illusion of a separate self, we become more open to life and less weighed down by the need to define or control our experiences. Part 4. The Tathagatagarbha Doctrine, Discovering Buddha Nature. One of the most intriguing interpretations of emptiness is found in the Tathagatagarbha Doctrine, which teaches that all beings have Buddha nature. This concept suggests that even though we are empty of a separate self, at our core, we possess an inherent potential for awakening. The Tathagatagarbha is often compared to a screen on which various images appear. While the images come and go, the screen remains unchanged. In the same way, our true nature is untouched by the thoughts, emotions, and experiences that arise in our awareness. This teaching can be a source of hope and inspiration. No matter what challenges we face or how many mistakes we make, our Buddha nature remains pure and untarnished. Embracing this idea can encourage us to be compassionate with ourselves and others, recognizing that beneath the surface, we all share the same potential for enlightenment. Personal growth and self-acceptance. Embracing my Buddha nature. In my own journey, the concept of Buddha nature has been a guiding light. There have been times when I felt overwhelmed by self-doubt or regret, but remembering that my true nature is beyond these fleeting thoughts has helped me find inner peace. Just as clouds pass across the sky without changing the sky itself, my emotions come and go, but my essence remains the same. This perspective has allowed me to be kinder to myself, knowing that my worth is not defined by my circumstances or actions. Part 5. The Emptiness of Views. Letting go of fixed beliefs. Finally, we come to the emptiness of views, a teaching that encourages us to let go of rigid beliefs and opinions. In Buddhism, this principle is often illustrated by the analogy of a finger pointing at the moon. A wise person understands that the finger is just a guide and does not mistake it for the moon itself. Similarly, Buddhist teachings are like the finger. They point us toward truth, but they are not the truth itself. To cling to views or doctrines as absolute truth is to miss the essence of emptiness. This teaching is especially relevant in our modern world, where opinions and beliefs can quickly become sources of conflict. By embracing the emptiness of views, we can approach our ideas and opinions with humility and openness, allowing space for growth and understanding. Living without attachment to beliefs, a story of letting go. There was a time when I was very attached to a particular view about success. I believed that achieving a certain status or recognition was essential for happiness. But as I delved deeper into the teachings of emptiness, I realized that this belief was causing me stress and dissatisfaction. I decided to let go of my rigid view and approach life with an open mind. This shift allowed me to explore new paths and find fulfillment in ways I hadn't considered before. The emptiness of views invites us to hold our beliefs lightly, recognizing that they are temporary constructs rather than ultimate truths. By doing so, we can navigate life with greater flexibility and resilience. Emptiness as a pathway to freedom. The Buddhist concept of emptiness is not about denying life or rejecting our experiences. Instead, it invites us to see life in a broader, more interconnected way. By recognizing the emptiness of self, objects, and views, we can free ourselves from unnecessary attachments and approach life with compassion, curiosity, and peace. Whether we're dealing with personal challenges, relationships, or our own inner struggles, the teachings of emptiness remind us that we are part of a vast web of causes and conditions. This insight can bring a profound sense of freedom and help us live with an open heart. Emptiness is not a void. It is a space of possibility, a doorway to a life that is richer, more compassionate, and less burdened by ego and attachment. Embracing this teaching can transform how we see ourselves and the world, allowing us to experience life in its fullness without clinging to the illusion of permanence. How emptiness can transform your life. As you reflect on these teachings, consider how the principles of emptiness might apply to your own life. How might your relationships, work, and sense of self change if you let go of fixed ideas and embrace the interconnected nature of existence? By taking these lessons to heart, you may find that emptiness, far from being a negation, is a doorway to a deeper and more fulfilling way of living. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the profound concept of emptiness in Buddhism. If you found this content helpful, please hit the like button to let me know you enjoyed it and want more on topics like these. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss future videos on philosophy, Buddhism, and the journey of self-discovery. And remember to ring the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when new videos are uploaded. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.